Hi, welcome to the second episode of the Shenanigans podcast. I'm Jesse, and I'm accompanied today by Greg
Hello.
and a soon coming special guest. Stay tuned. All right, so our first section today is story time with Jesse. That's me. And we'll be covering the work of a lovely lady named Nikita Gill. She's a well known poet and writer from the UK. This is the first work by her I've actually ever read. I originally had another plan for the episode, but after I read this, I really couldn't imagine doing anything else. All right, so it's called The Truth About Monsters. It's a short poem, and I'm going to read it. The truth is, every monster you have ever met or ever will meet was once a human being with a soul that was as soft and light as silk. Someone stole that silk from their soul and turned them into this. So when you see a monster next, always remember this. Do not fear the thing before you, fear the thing that created it instead. All right, so that again was The Truth About Monsters by Nikita Gill. She speaks super forcefully and powerfully about humanity and its potential transition to evil, which I find super interesting. I say potential transition because the poem doesn't seem to be written in like a hopeless way. In my interpretation, the tone carries more of like a choose your own destiny field as well as a you're victim to your environment kind of vibe. It seems important to Gil that we understand where monsters come from, right? And of course, that's just my perspective. Again, that we have our own fate and destiny and we all kind of intertwine together. But I'd like to hear your piece. What do you think, Greg?
Well, I think that the poem really emphasizes the different perspectives in life. It talks about how people who some view as evil can just be misunderstood. It's really interesting.
Nice. I had a similar feeling. And as always, I have a song to relate it to. When I was reading the poem, I couldn't help but think of this song that I know carries a similar warning about identity and transitions to what Gil refers to as being a quote unquote monster. The song is titled Miss Missing You, and it's by Fall Out Boy over the album Save Rock and Roll. The whole album, which has a YouTube counterpart entitled The Young Blood Chronicles, tells an awesome story. The track isn't as well known as others from the album, like the infamous My Songs Know What You Did in the Dark, which is commonly called Light 'em Up. I think you've heard that, right, Greg?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's iconic. It's in so many movies. All right, anyways, the song Miss Missing You is super intriguing lyrically to me. There's a line from the chorus that really rings the same to me as Gil's poem did, and it's quote, "The person that you'd take a bullet for is behind the trigger." End quote. And I don't know, part of the poem where it talks about how monsters are instead created by others and shouldn't be blamed really resonates with me the same way this line does. I thought it was really cool.
Speaking of poems, did you know that in the play Cyrano DeBergerac, author Edmund Rawson depicts Cyrano writing a poem while dueling? Crazy. Well, for some context, we're currently reading a play titled Cyrano de Bergerac, which depicts Cyrano as a confident man with a big nose. He was so confident, in fact, that he criticized someone for not making fun of his nose correctly. Well, this went on for 3 whole pages. The premise of the play is that Cyrano is in love with Roxanne, his cousin.
Oh, gross, incest.
We're not going to talk about that one. The only problem is that he's ugly. So, he assists Christian, a dim-witted, good-looking man, in pursuing Roxanne. Cyrano's wits and Christian's beauty turns out to be an extremely effective way in charming Roxanne. Christian, overly confident in his non-existent skills, often goes against Cyrano's help and fails multiple times in ruining Roxanne. Cyrano then has to do damage control and teaches Christian that A, he's dumb, and B, follow his directions. He even wrote a farewell letter for Christian to give Roxanne if he died. What's next? His will? Like, come on, this guy's doing everything for him. It finally works out as Roxanne and Christian secretly get married. But oh no, Christian dies in battle. What a shame. Who was going to see that coming? Roxanne, mourning Christian, realizes that the farewell letter was actually from Cyrano himself, which he denied to his grave, for some reason. Finally, Cyrano gets mortally wounded, and right before he dies, he states that he's lost everything, except for his panache. Well, At least it was a better love story than Twilight. But in reality, Cyrano was none of that. Except being a duelist, of course. Cyrano was actually a playwright who lived in the 17th century. His actual life was poorly documented. However, what is known is that he was the son of Abel di Cyrano and Esperance Bellinger. His only notable pupil was future biographer Henry Lebret. Cyrano did actually fight in the 30 Years' War as depicted in the play, and Roxanne was an actual person, modeled off his actual cousin who lived with his sister, Catherine de Bergerac. The specific cause of his death, however, is unknown, as in the play he was fatally wounded from a falling wooden beam, while in real life there is speculation that he died from an unknown disease.
All right, we've got a special treat for you guys today. I'm here with Bree. Say hi.
Hello.
To talk about the language programs at our school. So, my first question for you is why did you choose French instead of the other language options?
I chose French because honestly, I thought it sounded cool. And I kind of wanted to like study abroad in a country like France. But um and I did Spanish in eighth grade. So but I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would French. So I decided to switch.
Awesome. Yeah, speaking of traveling abroad and the like, how has learning a second language changed you and your learning experience and opened you up to that new sense of culture?
It's interesting because it's not France is we haven't really done a lot of culture besides freshman year, to be honest. So it's difficult to explain, I guess, because there's not so much culture that we've learned about as it is the and how the language has changed, I guess.
Huh, that's interesting. Speaking of your
Yeah.
learning experience, though, like what do you think is some of the hardest parts about learning French is?
Oh boy. The grammar, 100% the grammar and the pronunciations, because French has interesting grammar where like I know English has a ton of tenses and I don't know what they're called, but then I learned them in French and it seems like so much more. Guess like I guess it would be the same as learning English, but learning the grammar and what it's called is really difficult. And then pronunciation is a disaster. There's so many vowels, and then it's not pronounced anything like that. So it's definitely a challenge.
Wow. So, like, with all this stuff, learning all the grammar and stuff, and learning French as a language as a whole, how do you see yourself using it regularly after you graduate?
I don't know. It depends on if I decide to study abroad or have enough money to study abroad. Because if I do, then I would have a chance to use it. And I'm considering taking it as a minor in college because with the degree that I want, I have to, I think, have 2 years in college of a language. So I could do that.
Huh. Well,
Awesome.
that's really interesting, Bree.
Is there anything else you'd like to add relating to anything we've talked about today?
I don't think so.
Cool. Well, it was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
All right, so today's charity overview is going to be a little bit different from the expected because I realized the other day that both Greg and I are in the National Honor Society at our high school, but we don't actually know much about the origin. But before I get into that, I wanted to ask, I know this is our first year in NHS, but how has it impacted you so far?
Well, for me, it's really impacted me positively. I have spent more time volunteering at nursing homes. I was actually helping my grandmother um with her daily routine at her nursing home, and NHS has also motivated me in tutoring other people in various subjects like mathematics and science, and I feel like that it's overall just made me feel better as a person.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been great for outreach. I totally get what you're saying. Like last Christmas, I went to the nursing home in my town and I played Christmas songs for the amnesia and dementia patients. And for people that sometimes struggle to like remember their own names, like singing Frosty the Snowman with them, a bigger deal than you'd think. Um,
Wow, that is really sweet actually.
yeah, no, it just, I don't know. It made my world go round. It was a really nice time. So, enough about us, though. NHS was founded in 1921 by the National Association of Secondary School Principals. Technically, chapters of honor societies existed prior to that date, but there wasn't any like unifying group national society for it. By 1930, there was over 1,000 NHS chapters, and the number's still growing bigger today. Something I found super interesting is how well developed their values are. In fact, the society has their own set of bylaws and a constitution. If you read it, it's super wholesome. Okay, and I'm actually gonna read a section from it. It goes, "The purpose of this organization shall be to create enthusiasm for scholarship, to stimulate a desire to render service, and to promote leadership, and to develop character in the students of secondary schools." So yeah, that's all about NHS. I found that super interesting, and I hope you did too.
Well, with that, I think that's for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed our surprise. We had a lot of fun setting it up. Join us next time at 3 p.m. Friday. Goodbye.